Hi, everyone. Welcome to In Focus by Seven Wonders. Today on the program, we have Chase, the Director of Product Marketing at Highlevel. Thanks so much for joining, Chase.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's a pleasure.
We'll dive right into it. We have a lot of questions. Obviously, folks in the Highlevel community are very familiar with who you are. For folks who may not know who you are, who may not be familiar with Highlevel, just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you got to be in the position you're in today.
So the quick version of it is I was running the operations for an agency for like 7 years. A partner and I built up a 7-figure marketing agency. We were on the hunt for people that were trying to build what we all felt we needed, which was like an all-in-one marketing solution instead of having to tie like 5 different pieces of software together for every client. That led us to to find Sean and Varun and Robin, who were starting Highlevel. We were one of the first customers. In those first few weeks, we had a lot of back and forth, and I got the opportunity to come on board. I think I was one of the first 20 employees to join the team, and we've grown over the past 5 years to over 1,500 employees. So it's been a heck of a ride.
And only going up from here, right?
Yeah, we feel like we're just getting started, to be honest.
And in a lot of ways, you are just getting started too. I mean, how long has Highlevel been around, like officially in the marketplace?
We just turned 6 not too long ago, so 6 years.
Wow.
And you're a Philly guy originally too.
I am. I'm from the Northeast. I'm from Doylestown. Right out of college. I taught high school in Philly for a little bit. Lived in Philly for a few years.
So that means you're an Eagles fan, right?
Of course, yeah.
Okay, good. All right.
Eagles, Flyers, baby.
Yeah, that's awesome. So tell us a little bit about, I actually didn't know that about your agency background. So tell us a little bit about that before we get into what you're doing now at Highlevel. What type of clients were you servicing? What type of things did you observe before entering this job you have now really as part of a SaaS product and team?
The agency world was awesome. I think I found it like most people do, didn't go to school for it or anything like that. Just sort of always had, I guess, technical acumen and could help people out with things. And that led to learning WordPress and then studying and figuring out ads and all that kind of stuff. And so we built a full service agency. So we would do a lot of websites. We did SEO, paid advertisement, reputation management, the whole shebang for local businesses predominantly. And then we, over the years, started niching into medical and then more specifically into med spas. So we worked with a bunch of med spas for a while. When I left, Matt actually created a second division of the company or a sister company specifically for the medical space.
And med spas, what were some of the main issues you found that clients came to you to deal with? I know we found we work with mostly a lot of enterprise businesses and stuff like that. So we're dealing with a very specific subsect of the market, but med spas, I'm wondering what do they come to you and ask for?
To be honest, they all small local businesses have the same problem, no matter the niche. And that's what I've really learned over the years, which is they can't follow up with people fast enough. They don't follow up with leads. Either they're not generating leads, and if they are, they don't follow up with them fast enough. And when I say fast enough, I think people don't even know what that means. And it's really 5 minutes. So when you generate a lead, this MIT professor guy did a study at one point, and basically the long short of it was there's a 5-minute shot clock. When you generate a lead, you have 5 minutes to get them engaged. And if you don't, the odds of ever engaging and closing the lead fall off a cliff. That's really what changed our agency. When we found Highlevel, the first thing that we did was just start automating text messages back to all the leads as soon as they were generated and basically saying, hey, thanks for claiming the Botox promotion. Have you ever had Botox before? And then it doesn't matter if they say yes or no, they've engaged. We would just automate back. Awesome. The next step is to book a visit. And we would send back the booking link. And that just changed the game because now all of a sudden we took the lead to booking ratios just jumped by 50 to 70% for all of our clients.
Wow.
And now we were no longer selling leads, we were selling bookings. And so that really changed the game.
I come from a family of small business owners, and I'd say that's one of the primary problems. And that's been a problem for us too at our company. How quickly do you follow up with leads? We have a very quick response time. That's how we've landed a lot of our clients too. They always tell us.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at businesses and you quickly understand why they don't respond to leads fast enough. They're doing a million other things. They're running their business, right? And so I think they think, oh yeah, we'll get to them today. And then, missed them today, but we'll get to them tomorrow. And that's just, you lost them 5 minutes after they reached out.
The intention with this show is really to to dive deep into the concept of storytelling and what role that plays in both from an agency standpoint for themselves, but also for on behalf of their clients. What would you say, both in your agency background and also now working for Highlevel, what role does storytelling play in your world?
Storytelling is something that I've learned so much about, and I still feel like I have so far to go. I feel like it'll be a never-ending journey with getting better and better at storytelling, right? And I think it's so underappreciated, I guess. I think you can get pretty far just by running an ad for a good offer, generating leads, and follow up with them quickly. I think most businesses can actually get themselves to a point of growth if you do just that well. But to really go to the next level, you have to become a storyteller. I try to help people think about, I think of marketing is in a framework of 5 things: capture, nurture, close, evangelize, and reactivate. Always be capturing more leads. You've got to nurture them into a sale, and then, which is the close. And then here's where people fall down. You've got to turn those customers into evangelists. They need to leave reviews, recommend you. You're turning one sale into many. And then the piece that pretty much always gets neglected is the reactivation. So as you create customers and leads, you build a database, and you need to storytell to that database. And when you do, you can literally generate sales on demand. If you can get good at telling your company's story and the stories of your customers and their problems, every week you could be sending out emails and text messages that tell these stories. And every time you do, it drums up more business. And I think the businesses that can get to that point are the ones that become franchises, become household names, you know what I mean? Just getting to that point is an achievement, but then mastering that, I think, is just a never-ending process.
We think about like a brand, right? And how brands start and then how they evolve, and they tell different stories in their progression. Highlevel is growing really quickly. I mean, to go from 20 to 1,500 employees and however many customers, you guys have like 40,000, 30,000 customers, right? Some crazy
It's up to like 80 now.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, there we go. So, what was the story you were telling at the inception of Highlevel, and what's the story you're telling now, and how has it evolved over time?
That's a really great question. In the beginning, the story was so crystal clear, right? It's like, hey, we are agency guys building a tool for agencies that's never been done before. Because most marketing tools are built by companies, VC-backed companies that have salespeople, teams of salespeople that try to sell the software directly to the businesses, right? They're calling Dr. Bob's office, trying to get him to use the CRM directly. And if you've ever been in the agency space, you know that businesses have no idea what software they need. They have no idea how to set it up. That's why agencies exist, right? We help businesses with these technical problems. So we were sort of this breath of fresh air saying, hey, we're going to build the tools that these businesses need, but we're going to package it and price it and sell it in a way that is agency friendly. We don't price by contacts, right? You can have as many contacts in the system as you want. We don't price by users. You can have as many users in the system as you want. And we have unlimited sub-accounts, like client accounts, which in the past, if you were an agency, every time you got a client, you have to get like 5 softwares and piece them together, and every one of those softwares priced by user, by contact, by whatever, so that as you grow that business, every month that stack of software is getting more expensive. So every month you have to either go back to your clients and say, hey, we need to raise our price because the cost of these tools is, and the client feels nickel and dimed, and so it was horrible. With Highlevel, you get all that at a flat fee. So you could pay Highlevel $500 a month, and then the other X factor was you can white label it. So agencies were like, game on. We have our own software now that we don't have to build. We just get to call it ours and brand it ours. We pay our partner, Highlevel, $500 a month, and then we can go sell this to as many med spas or as many whatever as we want and keep all that money. And all we're paying Highlevel is $500 a month. And so that story just resonated so soundly with the agency community, because it was like, finally somebody realizes that we're here. They realize the value that we play in this equation. And so, yeah, it was just a recipe for really rapid growth. But it is evolving now, right? Because now we're at the point where we're becoming we're on the path to being a household name. And so businesses are finding us directly as well as agencies. We now have a lot of like coaches that come into the platform. We just launched a sister platform called Collab, which is courses and communities. So the avatar has definitely diverged, and we are, still finding our way as far as storytelling. We know the stories that we want to tell, but we're just trying to get really good at identifying and segmenting our avatars so that we can tell the right story to the right person and they're not hearing conflicting stories, which is sort of where we're at now.
It's always interesting to me too to see like, okay, well, you said you were in the first bunch of people to join the team, right? And the founders are usually the initial storytellers, and then they're handing the brand off to you, and then you're developing the brand. Like, what did that look like when you first started with Highlevel, like from a brand perspective and where it's come now?
This is an awesome question that I don't get to talk about much, but it's funny. So Highlevel, before we found Highlevel, we actually looked at another platform that was at that stage sort of very similar to like what they were saying where they were going to go. And it didn't work out at all. The owner, so like they had an event, I flew up to the event. The owner was like a real estate guy. And I was like, this guy knows nothing about engineering. He's never had software before, so we pulled out of that. And that's through the people I met at that event is how we found Highlevel. When I found Highlevel, it was like, okay, who's behind it? Well, it's 2 engineers and an agency owner. Now we're talking. The one engineer had software that he exited and sold in the past. So I'm like, okay, the foundation is here. So when I got in, I started quickly, I'm a brand guy trying to like, hey guys, the logo, it's, could use some work. And, they're like, we paid a guy on Fiverr to make that. Like, who cares? Like, you can't change it, but what do you want to do? I'm like, can we at least capitalize the H and the L? Sure. Okay, great. Can I just reposition the sizing a little bit? Sure. Okay, awesome. So then it was like, a year or two, and it's like, guys, like we need to build the brand. And for them, it was just such an afterthought because these guys are so smart. They are data-driven ninjas. You know what I mean? And so this is a funny story that they'll all tell you, and no matter who you ask. Everybody hates our website. We hate the website, right? The website was built using our funnel builder on a flight where Robin and then we're going to the first event to sell the thing. We have paid substantial amounts of money to have beautiful versions of our website created, but every time we A/B test it, it loses. Wow. To the co-founders, that's all that matters is like, we don't care what it looks like as long as it converts. And if you can't beat the current conversion rate, then the answer is a no. And so that's been a challenge to slowly iterate the design of that. But one of the really fun things that I got to do was invent the mascot. So early on, I had a personal assistant from the agency world that I met. When I got the job at Highlevel, I re-engaged with her and I was like, what are you up to? I got this new job and I really want to make a great impression. So I was like feeding some of my work to her. So I was, just crushing it. And everybody's like, oh man, Chase could take on so much. Like he's just killing it. And then the word got out that I had this awesome assistant. And so people started leveraging her. And I was like, hey, wait a minute. Why am I paying my assistant anymore when like the team's using her? So can we hire her? So she joined, and she's super creative. Her name's Isa. She lives in Mexico City. I was like, what if we had a mascot, And Isa was like, oh, I love this. And so we went and looked at a bunch of companies, SaaS companies that had mascots, and Salesforce really stood out. They have like 10 mascots or something. They've got like Einstein and this and that. And so we were like, well, what works with us, And we decided on a space theme and a robot. And so then Isa had a really great contact in Mexico City who designed Highly. Having the mascot has enabled us. It's so much easier to tell stories and stuff because we can, we have a million different versions of Highly in all sorts of different scenarios and doing different things. And so it's really been cool to be able to extend the brand and have that tool to use to help tell the stories.
I have a question still on the theme of storytelling. We've been talking about it from the perspective of how Highlevel does storytelling to attract an audience and keep customers engaged and all that. What advice do you have for agency owners in their own storytelling endeavors and in terms of how they attract their own clients?
Yeah, I think the easiest way to do it is to take your client experiences and to turn those into stories and to tell those stories, right? So imagine I'm building an email, a newsletter, something that I'm sending out, and it's like, hey guys, I want to introduce you to, Bob's from Bob's Dentistry. Bob came to us because they were running ads and they were generating leads, but nothing was happening. And just like every business we work with, it's because they weren't following up fast enough. And so we did X, it produced Y, Bob's super happy now. I think that's a really easy formula to storytell. I also think people don't realize how much people care about your origin stories, telling stories about why you started the agency, right? Like what got you into that? What are you noticing about your industry? Those are great stories, right? I think it's super easy to create a program where I like to call it like DJing content. You're reading the news on behalf of your clients. And so you are identifying trends and then adding your unique insight on top of that and telling that story. Like, hey, I know you guys are hearing about AI left and right, but what does it really mean for a med spa?
Right.
Let's talk about this voice AI thing that just dropped in Highlevel and what we think it's going to do for the med spa industry. I am on a personal journey to try to start to do exactly this, create templates or like story starters, right? And it's like, oh, you're sitting there, you don't know what story to tell. Okay, well, here are like 5 story starter ideas. That's awesome. Yeah, origin story. I haven't done that in a while. Boom, go tell that story, Have like a Rolodex of starter ideas and then just make sure that you're constantly doing it, right? The consistency is what really matters.
I'm also curious your opinion, Chase, on storytelling formats too. Obviously, Highlevel's big with sending out newsletters and content for digital platforms. We've been seeing a ton of success with this type of format, just video conversations, especially because I think in this age of AI and technology, there's a huge focus and desire for authenticity in storytelling, and this is a great format for that. What's your take on that and how you think it can apply to agency owners?
100%. I mean, that is video, especially this format, is how we grew Highlevel. Again, the founders are so anti the norm, which is hilarious, but the norm, when you look at it, is so backwards and broken, right? So I remember at a certain point in our journey, I was like, hey guys, do you think we should get like a really fancy video made for like our next big release? And they were like, it's not really our style. Like, how much would that cost? And I was like, I don't know, probably like $15,000, $20,000. And they were just like, forget about it. And they're like, just go on Zoom and tell everyone how awesome it is. You're really good at that. And so that has always been the mentality, is like, okay, any chance we get on Zoom with a group of folks that are marketers, we take it. And so for the first 2-3 years, I think I worked right under Sean, who's one of our co-founders and our CEO. And the first year we started this program, here's what we did. And this playbook works every time. Create a podcast, invite the people who you want to get in front of their audience to first be a guest on yours, because everybody always says yes. And then they kind of owe you, right? So it's like, hey, thanks for coming on our show. Here's the link to it. It's already got a couple hundred views. Clearly, we resonate. We'd love to come speak to your community if we ever got the opportunity. And then, of course, they invite you back, and now you go do that. So I think the first year we started it, we did over 100 webinars and podcasts between the two of us. The next year we did over 200. Wow. And that's how we grew. It was just like, whether there's 5 people watching or 500 people watching, we want to hop on and tell our story live, just like this. No editing needed, you know what I mean? And it was very scalable.
And that's such a testament too. And I look at your YouTube channel, and some of them have a lot of views. Some of them don't have a lot of views. And we always say too, it's not about the amount of views, it's about getting to the right audience. And I think that your success is just a testament to that, of like, it's clearly getting to the right people, even if there aren't thousands and thousands and thousands of views on every single video.
Yeah.
The right people are watching it. So
100%. I mean, it takes a lot of work, right? It's a lot of outreach. I sent a zillion cold emails to people, inviting them on our show and then trying to get on their shows and stuff. But to me, this format is so scalable, right? You can spend 1 hour talking to one person, but really you're talking to 500 or 1,000 or however many people are going to end up seeing that video. Some of them flop, some of them hit, you're right. But as long as you're doing it consistently, it is how we built our business for sure, especially in those early years, because you just get in front of the right community and all of a sudden you see 50 new trials come in and it's like, okay, well, that was a good one. Let's make sure that we loop back with them 6 months from now and do it again,
This is something that we see with a lot of our clients too, right? Like they make one big video, which I do think there is a value in like brand establishment and stuff like that. Highlevel was in a unique situation, but a lot of different companies need to establish themselves as a brand before getting out to the marketplace. But what have you found in terms of the consistency of the podcast? You're 6 years in now, and you said you started releasing the podcast really almost at the inception of the business. Do you find that doing a new podcast every week or however often you all do it is like majorly beneficial still even to this point?
Absolutely. At a certain point, I handed it off to a team of people that run it now, and they do one almost every day, I think. And then I started a new podcast that's more product focused, where we do it every Friday, called the Release Radar. And that's become a fan favorite for the folks that are really into like the features and stuff. So we're doing video, and then on top of that, we do like live workshops. So we stream every day, at least once a day. What I'm really interested in is sort of what you were hinting at, is taking this and combining it with a more polished approach to video at the same time, right? So you take something like this, you chop it up into the best clips, and then, that can work in itself. But where I want to get to is we have the best clips, and then we're sort of like B-rolling in polished animations of our application that sort of illustrate what's being talked about. And then I feel like you have clips that can really pop off on, now that the social networks have switched from the network graph to the interest graph, where it's like it doesn't matter how many people you're friends with or connected to, if the piece of content is really good, it can go get a huge audience. That's challenging because the polished video stuff is obviously way more work, but I do think it can really elevate the situation. And I think combining it with clips from stuff like this really is what the algorithms like right now. It's what viewers like right now.
It's so funny you mentioned that. It's a perfect segue, because that literally exactly what we're seeing in the marketplace as being what clients have the biggest appetite for, is we are producing this type of format where it's just an organic conversation, gives the guest or the host the opportunity to demonstrate their authority and that they know what they're talking about, connect with their audience, and then we handle the whole post-production workflow to pop out relevant B-roll clips, relevant graphics to populate on top of that organic and authentic content. 1 hour-long interview, like you said, could fill up someone's content calendar for a month. And I think, as you know, we've collaborated on video content for Highlevel. We've done stuff for other high-level agency owners. And what we've learned from doing that is the high-end polished visuals, the graphical animations of what's happening in the software are only as effective as the message of a real person behind it that's then sharing about how this is being implemented for their actual clients. Like, what is this feature doing for your actual client base? So what you described as a desire in the marketplace, that's what we're aiming to fulfill in the marketplace, is this video podcasting program, essentially, where we facilitate clients, agency owners, entrepreneurs to hold the conversations, and then we handle all of the execution, making them more polished.
Yeah, that's genius, and I think you'll do really well with it, right? I think you guys will find sort of like, again, those story starters that apply to any business, and you can just flip on record with Dr. Bob the dentist, right? And be like, what was a challenge you saw one of your patients had this week? It's like, oh, Mary, man, she had the nastiest root whatever I've ever seen. And like, now you're telling a story, right? You got the clip. Yeah. And then, I think for sure, like cutting in those quick B-roll type of clips and animation
Yeah.
and stuff like that, is when you're in a TikTok rabbit hole or whatever and you're swiping, like that's the format of every video that you're seeing, right? Like there's no coincidence that that's what is hot right now. And so
Sure.
but it's hard for the average person to make that kind of content.
I find myself getting in a loop on, like you're saying, on Instagram. I'm like, oh, this looks like the stuff we're making for clients, but